Hey everybody, we're going to solve absolute value equations, and this is part 2 of me solving absolute value equations. So if you have not yet seen part 1, I strongly suggest you do that so you have a little bit better idea of what's going on. So let's just jump right into it. So I have 2 absolute value of x minus 1 plus 3 equals 15. Now, remember, absolute values are going to act like parentheses. So when we've been solving equations, solving algebraic equations, our goal is to get x by itself. But remember, the order in which we go about getting x by itself is we do PEMDAS backwards. We get rid of any addition, subtraction with the x, then get rid of multiplication and division, then get rid of exponents, then work inside parentheses. So if we look at this first problem where we have a 2 absolute value of x minus 1 plus 3 equals 15, remember, absolute values are like parentheses. So I cannot touch what's inside this absolute value until the very, very, very end. So I got to get rid of, on the outside of these absolute values, I got to get rid of the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division first on the side with x. Then I can work on the inside. So if I want to get rid of addition, subtraction first, that means I got to get rid of this plus 3. So minus 3 to both sides. So that's going to give me a 2 absolute value of x minus 1 absolute value equals 12. Okay, so I got rid of the addition, subtraction. Now I got to get rid of multiplication, division. So I have this 2 out front, then the absolute values. We can't distribute this. Absolute values you cannot distribute through. They're not like typical parentheses. They're close parentheses, they're not exactly the same. So I can't distribute it, but this is being multiplied here. So the opposite of multiplying is let's go ahead and divide each side by 2. So then I have absolute value of x minus 1 equals 6. And just like that, by removing the 3 and removing the 2, this is looking awfully similar to the type of equations we were solving in part 1. So now all that's left is the absolute value. To get rid of it, we can do that, x minus 1, but then we take the right side and let's put a plus or minus on it. So then we get plus or minus 6. And then our last step, if you remember from part 1, is we're going to split this up into 2 equations because there's both a positive and a negative 6 here. So we're going to have x minus 1 equals 6 and x minus 1 equals negative 6. Then we just solve these 2 basic equations and we will be finished. So we're going to add 1 here, add 1. That will give us x equals 7. And I could plug that in, check it, it will work. For the sake of this video, I'm not going to show that. Write 1 plus 1 plus 1. We get x equals negative 5. So that's probably about as complex as you can really see that we're going to see on the absolute value equations. So you still just PEMDAS backwards. Remember, absolute values, they act as a parentheses. One more example for you. So on the bottom one, I have a negative 4, and then absolute value 2x minus 1 equals 20. So order of operations backwards. Can't touch the 2 or the 1 on the inside yet. Got to get rid of the 4 on the outside. So that is being multiplied. So the opposite of multiplication by negative 4 is divide each side by negative 4. So that will give me an absolute value of 2x minus 1 equals negative 5. Now, to get rid of the absolute values, we could do that. You would have 2x minus 1, but on the right side, you would have to do a plus or minus and then a negative. It's starting to get crummy. This should look odd to you. Plus or minus negative 5. Remember, we can never have an absolute value equal a negative number. That will never happen. Absolute values always give you positive numbers. So there's going to be no way, no matter what I plug in for x, I'm never going to get negative 5 because the absolute value is only going to produce positive numbers. Only produce positive numbers. So like, if you tried to solve this out and say, well, what about 3? Well, then you have 2 times 3 minus 1. So you'd have 6 minus 1. And you have absolute value of 5 equals negative 5. But remember, absolute values, they always give you a positive number. So you get 5 equals negative 5. Those are not the same. No matter what you try for x, nothing will work. This problem is a no solution. There's nothing we can do because we're never going to be able to take the absolute value of something and get a negative. That concludes this video. That it was solving absolute value equations part 2.